I'm like I'm like overwhelmed. Jax was trans, right? That's what I'm getting from this. And then I also, does this mean that Bubble was the blue AI? Is that essentially what Bubble was? I mean, Soma theory, we all kind of thought, right? I mean, Soma makes the most sense. I think Soma was pretty much confirmed in episode 8 when we see all of the files that Kinger digs into, and we see the brain scan files. Brain scan's obsolete. I think that kind of was like a big like wink wink. Obviously this is Soma, and I know a lot of people were like, I don't want it to be Soma because it's too obvious, and I totally get that. It'd be fun if it was this crazy twist nobody saw coming, but to me that made the most sense. It goes with gooseworx, finding happiness in a stagnant life. It makes Pomni's character come full circle. It makes the story come full circle from the pilot episode until now. So I'm really happy with it. So I think the blue AI is solved. It's Bubble. Why Jax looks at his hand all the time, solved. Jax having a girly bedroom, solved. Jax having, just like being so focused on his masculinity and having to prove his masculinity, that's solved. What happened to Ribbit and why the two of them drifted apart, that's also solved. So those are the things, we got their names. Soma theory, trying to think of like what wasn't solved, and there's quite a lot. One, I want to know how Caine came back. I don't really understand that. I wish Scratch was more explained. Obviously, it had something to do with his brain tumor, right? Like that wouldn't have been part of the dialogue and so important in episode 8 if that wasn't a factor. And we know that Scratch was making something. We know he was dying, and we know that him and other people did brain scans. So is this like full Soma where, I don't know, they went in for an MRI and did a brain scan? Or because the main 5 characters excluding Kinger from the group, they have no connection to CNA. How did their brains end up on file in the CNA computer for Caine to access? I'm going to have to go back and on a second watch really like the different doors that Pomni goes into within Jax's mind. I don't know why that threw me for a loop. I was really confused what was going on. Were they just like the many faces of Jax, like the many sides of Jax, his alter egos and his deepest fears and the things he thought about himself? Like, were we just seeing the different forms of Jax that he created to protect his true self because he was so terrified of vulnerability? Is that what we were seeing in those rooms? I mean, his true self was under lock and key, so it makes sense. I wonder if, like, say Pomni had gone into, like, Ribbit's abstracted mind, would we see similar things? Like, is that kind of, like, the mind file breaking down? I wish there was a way for their real-world counterparts to know about their copies in the circus and know about the amazing relationships that they made with each other, because I wanted the end to be like the end of the Great British Baking Show, where everyone like still hangs out with each other and like they've made these great family bonds, and I want like them to go over to Kinger's house and like hang out with his kids and just like be a giant family. And in order to make myself like feel less depressed about the show ending and Jax abstracting and everything, I'm just gonna pretend that somehow Caine got the message out to real Abigail and real Grant and whatever everyone else is, Susie, I don't remember anyone else's name. I also love that at the end, the abstracted people, the way that they were floating around, they were like whales. I don't know, there's something there about them becoming whales floating around that just like, I don't know, that really got to me. I want to know more about the company, I think that's like the main thing. Like, I really want to know more about the company. I'm glad that Grant kind of filled them in right at the get-go, and I'm glad that Caine had a come to Jesus moment, and then he showed them in the real world. I do feel like we got a lot of questions answered, and I knew we were going to be left with even more questions than we had before, but for the most part, it honestly definitively wrapped up more than I thought it would. I thought it was going to be more of a, how do you think it ended sort of thing, where it was up to interpretation, but I'm actually really glad they went more concrete with it. Like, it did feel rushed in the sense that this could have been many more episodes, and I feel like the series deserved more episodes. Some shows, they go on for too long. Some shows go on for too long and you're like, nah, this should have been cut like season 2. This was one of those shows where I feel like it was a disservice to the series and the story and these characters and this world building that was set up so nicely. I think it was a disservice to the show to end it as soon as it ended. Maybe it's just because I love these characters so much and I love this world, and there's so much unexplored content that I would have loved, and I hope we get some behind the scenes stuff, or some clips, or some shorts, or some added on stuff, because damn, I really don't want to let these characters go. And I know the fandom won't, and the fandom is, for as much garbage as the fandom gets, and maybe rightfully so, I don't know if like fully rightfully so, there's so many amazing people and so many creative, talented artists and just minds, and there's so much cool stuff, like the cool comics and the dubbing and the fan songs and the games and the everything that's out there. I know that as a collective fandom, so much more cool stuff is going to come out of this. The group that I saw the Amazing Digital Circus with in theaters was honestly a really good group of people. Everyone was pretty respectable. It wasn't fully booked either, which was really nice. And it was like respectfully enthusiastic. Like, people were excited when Caine did his villain song in episode 8, and everyone collectively gasped when Caine showed up in the new episode. So it was a good group, so I'm really happy about that. The only thing I had heard in passing was someone coming out of the show before mine, and they were like, I'm so glad that Zoopal and Gangle made it. And I was like, damn it, don't talk about it, I haven't seen it yet. And like I said, I'm recording this on Thursday, June 4th, and I can't wait for this to be out in 2 weeks for everyone, because I am dying to talk about this. I want to talk about this so bad. It's so heartbreaking to have a character that is so full of self-hate, and he knows he's self-sabotaging, and he knows he's done bad things, but it breaks my heart that he so deeply believes that he is a bad person. And I know people are going to disagree with this because he's done bad things, but I don't think he's a bad person. I really don't. There's some people that are monsters out there, and they do horrible things, and they do it without regret. They do it without reflection. They do it, they just don't give a shit, right? They don't care. And then there's people that have done bad things, and they feel such immense guilt and shame and remorse, to feel so much self-hatred to the point of wanting to end your life. That just breaks my heart. Now I'm crying. But I don't know, I really enjoyed Jax as a character. I think he was well written, well developed, well voice acted. I mean, Michael Cove acted an amazing job. They all did an amazing job. Just the symbolism between Jax abstracting and suicide, and even if Pomni pushed more, even if Ribbit pushed more, even if Ragatha coughed more, if it would have ended the same way, and I think Jax knows that. He said that he did this to himself. He wished he wouldn't have, but he knows he did, and it's really heartbreaking. I'm like a mess right now. I like cried. I cried watching the video in the movie theater, I mean, and then I've cried talking to myself into this microphone for the past 25 minutes. So I don't know if there's anything else that was unanswered that I was really betting on, or I was like, oh, this is going to be a huge plot point. Because going into episode 9, like I said in the video I made, the main things, oh my god, the main things that I think were important to note were obviously who the characters are, what the circus was, specifically what Caine was designed to do, abstraction as a concept, and conjuring as a concept. And conjuring was like a huge part of this. I really liked Pomni and King are starting to put the circus back together. That was really cute. And then one by one they all kind of putting it back together. I think watching this final episode has made me want to do 2 videos very badly, and luckily I have the next 2 weeks to work on them. But the 2 videos I really want to do now is I want to do a deep dive into Jax's psyche, and I want to really look at I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, and Soma. If you're hearing this was past me having a talk to herself about the Amazing Digital Circus, the last act.